It's Kellen,
And Kendall,
and this is Off Court Racket.
the tennis podcast that's not really about tennis. We are two sisters with the love of tennis, and we cover everything that's happening off the court that keeps us engaged with the players on the court, like the relationships, the brand deals, everything happening on social media. So let's get into it, Kellen.
So, of course, we have to start with our hot topics in tennis this week, and actually, for I would probably say the last 2 weeks or so. But the Austin Open just ended Sunday, which I was super excited about. And Peyton Stearns won. This was her first time winning the Austin Open, and she actually won against Taylor Townsend, which I was surprised at. It was a very close game.
Yeah, the Austin Open is only in its second year. You were actually at the inaugural tournament last year. So it kicked off actually in 2025. It is a 250 event for WTA. So definitely in its infancy, being the second year, but it's already seemed to kind of bring in bigger names. So they've done a really good job of promoting the tournament, bringing in some bigger players. What do you think?
This has probably been the biggest year since it started. And I will say, being in Austin, the weeks preparing for the tournament, people are always talking about how since this is going to be the largest crowd ever. And for those of you who don't know, the tennis tournament is in a neighborhood at a country club. And so the parking is horrible. Um, and you have to park really far away and walk. But I will say that the tournament itself and then all of the entertainment surrounding the tournament has definitely gotten better. And it's really a fun time. I really enjoyed it.
What's interesting is Texas has a couple of tournaments. They're not the premier kind of level of tournaments on the like thousand level on the WTA or the ATP side, but there is a Dallas Open. There's a Houston Open that's on clay that's at a country club just like Austin is. So Texas actually has three pretty good events, and it draws, I would say, a good amount of Americans. Most of the time,
Yeah.
I don't think there's not a ton of international players. There are some of the top players, but for the most part, you're getting a lot of support on the American side. And I think I saw that for Austin this year because Venus played, right? You had Taylor Townsend and Peyton Stearns and a few other, Jesse Pagula, I think, played as well. So you're getting, she was fresh off of her win in Dubai, which was awesome. So I think it's really, really nice that even in the second year, the Austin Open is getting a lot of love.
Yeah, I will say um Jessie, I think, played maybe one match and then she ended up pulling out because she had an injury. But I'm glad that she did because she had to save herself. This is really early in the tennis season, so I totally get it. But after you've won all those matches, I understand. So that was the Austin Open, and then of course we have to talk about what started already this week, which is Indian Wells, which is the start of the Sunshine Double. And for those of you, I didn't know about the Sunshine Double, of course, until Kendall told me about it a couple years ago. But apparently, the Sunshine Double is essentially the Indian Wells Masters and the Miami Open. These are back to back tournaments that happen on opposite ends of the country, which is interesting. But it's apparently one of the toughest feats for the tennis players because they essentially have to win, and Kendall, correct me if I'm wrong, they have to win 12 matches consecutively over 4 weeks between the two tournaments to win both of them.
Well,
And of
they're back
yeah,
to back tournaments. So essentially, you have to kind of really do a quick turnaround from Indian Wells going straight to Miami. Of course, that is assuming that you make it through deep into the tournaments. We're talking week two. So a lot of times, if they're winning Indian Wells, it's somewhat difficult to turn around, head to Miami, and jump into round one or round two, depending on what their seed is. So it is very, very difficult, and not a lot of winners of Indian Wells end up transferring that success to Miami just because, you have to do a quick conversion, and also the air might be slightly different. The ball and the courts move differently in Miami versus Indian Wells, which everyone talks about. So it is impressive, and not many people have done it before. Kellen, what is our stats on who's actually gotten it? I think Iga is the last one that might have done both in the last probably
yes.
5 years.
She is. And overall, with the most wins is Djokovic on the men's side, of course, and Steffi Graf,
Well, she's the
who
GOAT, so
she is the goat. But it's interesting because the Sunshine Double, both of the events are 1,000 events on the men and women's side,
right.
and do consider the Indian Wells as the fifth slam, which we'll talk more about later. And so super excited about the Sunshine Double. And Kendall, you did mention something interesting about the ball, how it's played in both of the environments. Because one of the things I did research was that it's two different environments. You have a dry environment in California, but then you have a lot of humidity in Florida, and so that goes to, I guess, how the players play
Yeah,
and how.
it's a lovely, I think, course on physics. And that is probably, I would say, the case for all tennis, depending on the surface of the court, as well as the conditions of where the tournament is played. It's going to completely affect the speed, the spin potentially. And so players, they're professionals. So they're going to recognize those almost very, very small changes because it completely affects how they technically play the game. So again, it almost supports further how impressive it is that if you win in India Wells, you can turn around, make those small adjustments, and win in Miami. So there's a few things that we can talk about on the Indian Wells side that have nothing to do with the tournament because the Indian Wells tournament rolled out like an entry for the players to come out outside of their athletic gear. And so I want you to tell me about some of these looks, Kellen, that you saw. Because Alcaraz, for an example, debuted a new haircut. Are you feeling the mullet? What do you think?
Think so. I like his blonde hair. I like his blonde hair that he had.
He definitely causes a bit of a stir. I like that he takes risks, to be honest, because he has a beautiful head of hair. So if you can grow that amount of thick hair, I think keep playing with it. It'll completely be gone. Basically, probably by the end of Miami, it'll all be grown back. So why not take a couple risks? I don't love the mullet. I think I preferred the blonde hair when he was going to take a chance. So he'll probably keep this. We'll see if it lives kind of through the rest of this part of the season. If he makes it to French with this haircut, but that's a different look. I don't know. But the players that came on the court, there was like a really good carousel that I saw on Reddit. What do you think of who's got the best look out of everybody that they've featured so far?
Sarah and Big Foe.
I like Francis's outfit. It's really nice. Francis looks really good.
I
The
mean, it's
the
really
linen
giving.
blazer.
I was gonna say it's really giving desert luxury,
Right.
as people like to say with Indian Wells of Desert Luxury. I really like his outfit. Um,
I think Taylor looks good. He looks a little hot to be honest. That jacket almost looks suede to me. And I'm like, are we going to the same place?
and
But
it's all black.
and it's
It's just
dark.
like
Yeah, and it's dark.
that's something you wear in New York.
Yeah, to me, his shoes look suede or his jacket looks suede, but regardless, it looks like he's hot in the climate. Whereas to me, Zverev has layers, but he still looks like he is in a warm place because he's got the white pants. Yes, it's navy, but it all kind of looks like light layers. So I think Zverev is doing the layers better, just like Francis is doing the layers better in this warm. What do you think
And
of of the other Russian man here?
oh my gosh, he looks so cute. I think he's adorable. But also
Gray.
I think his is giving desert luxury as well. And he well, no, he doesn't look hot. He doesn't look hot because his material looks like it could be light. I will say that I am all for this tunnel that they're now doing,
Yeah, it's a
showing
good
the
touch.
yes.
It's a
I'm
good
like
touch.
the NFL has this, the NBA has this. It's nice that tennis players get to have this as well.
Yeah, I like
I
this. I think it adds a nice fun element to it, especially Indian Wells, as we're going to talk about later in the show, is, such a prestige event outside of the slams. And the fact that they can add a little bit of element of fun to it I think adds to just lightening up what this tournament actually means and the weight of it to the overall career for some of these players.
Yeah, I wish I had more. I could see more because did Ben Shelton do a tunnel walk?
I didn't see him.
I didn't either. And for those of you out there, we have not been to Indian Wells before, but it is on our list to go. When was it, Kendall? We went 3 years ago or 2 years ago to Palm Springs.
We went to Palm Springs. It was after Indian Wells. I think it was in May. So we just missed it by a couple of months. But Palm Springs is gorgeous. And we went to the tennis complex to see where they play the tournament. And it was beautiful. So it is definitely on our list of tournaments to go to. We have gone to Miami Open. That was probably 3 years ago as well, the same year. And so we have experience with both of those complexes. The Miami Open, as some of you may know, is played at the Hard Rock Stadium where the Dolphins play. So it's not like a dedicated tennis tournament where they have a complex of multiple tennis courts. So they have to create it essentially over the period of prep with the kind of outside area outside of the stadium. And then they basically put a tennis court inside the main stadium and kind of close off, I would say, 30% of the seating so that it's not too overwhelming with the tennis crowds that actually support that.
And I actually did see Instagram posts where they have already started laying the foundation for the tennis courts
Oh,
in
nice.
preparation already. I was like, wow.
I mean, before we know it, it'll Indian Wells will wrap up. So that's awesome. So I think we can get into a deep dive for Indian Wells. We thought it might be helpful to just give a little bit of background because it is what most people assume to be the fifth slam, essentially. And the players treat it that way. I think commentators treat it that way. And the fans do as well. So Indian Wells is perceived to be a really prestigious event. It started in 2004, if I'm not mistaken. And every top player prioritizes it on their schedule. So we want to give it some love by dedicating a little bit of time to giving you background and, of course, some of our experiences with the tournament.
I will say with Indian Wells, there has been a lot of the winners that have won Indian Wells have literally been like dubbed as like the next big thing. So in the last couple years, of course, Iga has won in a couple years. So has Taylor Fritz won a year. I think Andreeva won it last year, right? Or 2 years
Andrea,
ago?
she won it last year.
Won it last year, yes. Um, and we can literally cut that
Oh,
out.
Kelly, you're saying so much. That's what I wrote it down. I just wanted to be mindful
I
of that. Go ahead.
thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Okay. Um,
It usually is a launching pad for players in that year. So another example, you said Andreeva won last year. She's already been on, I think, everyone's radar. But like the year that Osaka kind of broke out, she won Indian Wells. So that was like 2018. And then she had a great year after that, winning her first slam later on at the US Open, and then going on a little bit of a run from there, getting to number one. So yeah, Indian Wells can be the breakout tournament for a lot of people or establishing, your trophy kind of collection in your career.
now I'm nervous to say something. Oh, you're fine. One thing I did want to bring up about Indian Wells is outside of all of the past winners and it being considered the fifth slam, with it being considered the quote unquote fifth slam, would you say, Kendall, that it's one of the most important tournaments?
Yeah, I definitely would because, like I mentioned, most of the players prioritize it, if not every player prioritize making it in terms of how they manage their injuries, how they play the tournaments before and after the Sunshine Double. Like people will make sure that they make this tournament. Of course, they have to because it is a 1,000 event. So you're required to, as I think a member, there's a certain number of events that you have to hit. I think the thousands are required tournaments unless you're pulling out for injury. But everyone, I think, wants to perform well at this tournament. So they definitely make sure that they show up and try to be at their peak level of fitness and health.
Let's switch to, yes, it is the Fifth Slam, but let's switch to any celebrity sightings and why it's also considered the Fifth Slam. I will say I have seen in the in just the last couple days, there have been a couple of celebrities that have already been there, which is great because we want people to come to these tennis matches, again, continue to elevate tennis and spread the word about how great tennis is. So Lindsay Lohan was there this
Was she
week.
really? I think I missed that.
She was. And the thing is, because Indian Wells is in Palm Springs and it's literally right outside of LA, it's I think it's easier for folks or celebrities from LA to just come to Palm Springs uh to come on vacation there, A, because again, you're in a resort like style city. And so lots of people rent houses and it's all about vacation, but then you also get to see tennis on top of that. So I think that Indian Wells has all of the components to be a really great match, or sorry, a really great
Tournament.
tournament.
Yeah, I
Yes,
agree. I
tournament.
think a lot of what's interesting about some of these tennis tournaments is the environment that they're played in really does dictate the overall vibe of that event. So we've talked a lot about this when it comes to the Miami Open. As you can imagine, Miami, even though technically the Miami Open is not played in Miami now, it is played in what's the city?
Miami
It's
Gardens.
in Miami Gardens, which is a northern suburb of Miami, so not definitely not South Beach or downtown
Correct.
Miami, so it has a different vibe. But I will say that where these tournaments are played, you get a little bit of the feel of that area. So as an example, I've been to the Monte Carlo Masters, and that has a very particular feel because if you've been to the south of France, you've been to Monaco, it has a very elevated. The tournament is at another country club, just like Austin Open and the Houston Open is played. So you're getting a different type of fan that is attending this tournament. And of course, where it's located in Europe is going to attract a certain type of fan. So you have that feel within the tournament. And I think it's always unique because now at this point, I've been to a number of events, slams and events outside of 1000s, and you can just get a difference. And I like that aspect of it because you're not getting just a standard issue for all of these tournaments. So you know that you're going to get a little bit of a different flavor, which is nice because I think Miami was cool to go to and Indian Wells because as you mentioned it's in Palm Springs. A lot of people vacation there, a lot of people retire there actually, so it's got a slower speed and especially completely different in Miami because it has much more of a party atmosphere. But Indian Wells is great for that. And I think it gives a more kind of chill, relaxed vibe because of where it's played.
Yeah, I will say, like, with it being in Palm Springs, you can get massive crowds, that which is great. And I will say the tickets are not as expensive as I thought that they would be, because I was even looking just this week to see how expensive they would be if, someone was purchasing them. And they're not bad.
Oh, I didn't know that. For some reason, I assumed that Indian Wells tickets would be expensive because I think the
Yeah.
Miami Open tickets were more expensive than I thought. So
Mhm.
I think getting there and staying there is half the expense because you might
It
not
is.
be getting it on the like ticket price, but you're definitely going to have to pay for it with your flight and for your hotel accommodations because Palm Springs is not cheap. Anyone who's ever been to Coachella or to Stagecoach, you understand that that area really does thrive on tourist money. So they're going to get you on the Airbnbs, they're going to get you on the hotel prices. So, and to some degree, the ticket prices are a bargain because of that. In comparison, I'll say.
Yeah, I 100% agree because open, it's easier because it's in Miami, quote unquote, proper. So you have lots of different options. Whereas in Indian Wells, it's you're out in the desert, so you have limited options. Um, so even though, like you mentioned, the ticket price is not going to be expensive, but you flying to Palm Springs, which is not cheap, and even flying to LA and then having to drive 2 hours or 2.5 hours to Palm Springs is not super fun. But I still like the whole ambiance of Palm Springs and what it has to offer. So hopefully we'll be able to get out there soon.
I think we should. It's definitely on our list. We got to check it off, and we will give you all of the details from inside the tournament when we do.
All right, so let's switch to outside of the celebrity sightings. Let's switch to would you consider? We're gonna cut.
Yeah, you don't have to say let's switch. You can just say it. So, would you consider?
Oh, this is a good one. So if you had to rank Indian Wells with one of the slams, or not even rank it. I would probably say if you had to say if Indian Wells was compared to one of the slams, which one of the slams would you say it compares to?
That it's most similar to. So, for reference, I have been to all of the slams except for the French. And for Indian Wells, even though I haven't been to Indian Wells, my assumption for how it feels probably most compares to Wimbledon. And that seems strange, but
It does.
I say Wimbledon, it almost became a process of elimination because US Open is definitely lighthearted and feels like a party. That doesn't seem like Indian Wells to me. If anything, a party and the lighthearted nature is more akin to like the Miami Open. I would put US Open similar to the Miami Open. The Australian Open as well to me has a fun atmosphere. They play good music during the changeovers. They have a little bit of entertainment between the matches and outside on the grounds. That to me is more of a party and is lighthearted in comparison to what I perceive to be Indian Wells. Because I do see Indian Wells to be a little more prestigious, a little more buttoned up because it's in Palm Springs, and also attracting a type of crowd in the spectators and the seats of the tournament that is skewing a little bit older, a little more sophisticated, and thus changing the overall atmosphere, which to me reads like Wimbledon. So that's the reason. I just kind of backed into it by eliminating all of the other ones. The French Open, it's Paris. That I've heard that those crowds a little more rowdy, even though it's in kind of an atmosphere where you would kind of perceive it to be a little more buttoned up. So my guess would be Wimbledon. I don't think there's anything as buttoned up as Wimbledon itself, but that's probably the closest thing I would guess, and maybe French Open as a second. What do you think? Does that logic make sense? I don't know, but that's I kind of worked my way into that answer. So it makes sense when I articulated it, but I don't know if that actually reads as true because again, we haven't actually been on the grounds at Indian Wells. So this is what I consider to be my perception from the outside looking in.
Wait till we do the episode on the Miami Open, because at least that way we'll have first hand account.
Exactly. Because we were at the Miami Open. Kellen was very much a part of everything happening on the grounds. So we have real perspective on how the Miami Open feels and looks in comparison to some of the other tournaments. So this is just kind of our guess based on how they play it in the branding and also how people report from inside. So we are definitely going to have firsthand knowledge maybe next year or the year after when we go to this tournament.
So my ranking for this would probably be either US Open or the Australian Open. And for
Really?
context, guys, I have not been to the Australian Open, but I have been to the US Open. We just went last September. And the reason why I say either the Australian Open or the US Open is because even though the crowd may skew a little older, I still feel like you have young people that would be attending the tournament to make it fun. And in saying that, there are so many things to do outside of just attending the matches. When I was doing some of the research, there are lots of different brands that do their launches. There are lots of different tents and entertainment things to do outside of just watching tennis that doesn't skew older. It's everyone wants to have fun and wants to have fun just outside of watching tennis. And so I think that uh, the Indian Wells is similar to Australian Open from what I know from the Australian Open from reading and the US Open from being there. Nothing beats, of course, Wimbledon, but it's interesting that you said Wimbledon because Wimbledon is very quiet, as you know. The crowds are not rowdy at all,
Yeah,
and it is still fun. It's just a different atmosphere, I would say.
absolutely.
So, Kendall, I can't wait to see what week 2 brings us for the for Indian Wells. We still have a lot of Americans still in the tournament. I know that Ben Shelton and Opelka played today. I don't know what the end result of that was, but course, of course, that an American wins. But if not, that they at least get close because we haven't had an American win since Taylor Fritz.
Yes, and I mean, I'm staying open-minded. A few we at the time of we're recording this, it's day, like, 3 or 4, definitely in week 1, and Venus was in. She's lost in the first round already, and a few other Badosa has lost yesterday. So a few bigger names. Sloane was in, and she lost yesterday as well. So there's already been a little action with some of the not necessarily upsets, but definitely some bigger names that have left the tournament. But we have a good amount of Americans still left in and also just bigger names across the board. So I think it's still going to shake out to be a good tournament. And we're looking forward to continuing to watch as it all unfolds.
Yeah, super excited about it. And I will say, before we wrap up, I neglected to mention at the beginning of Hot Topics, Sabalenka got engaged
She
this week.
did. Congrats to Sabalenka and her tatted man.
The proposal was so cute, and she seemed very surprised. I don't know how long they've been together. Do you know how long they've been together?
They've been together a couple years. It's funny, I think in one of her on-court interviews, maybe at the US Open or Australian Open, she kind of alluded to him not proposing. She was like, "Chop chop, like, let's get to it." And I
No.
and I think they cut to him. So, yes, she has been wanting and waiting for this to happen. So, congrats to Sabalenka and her very dapper fiance on their engagement.
Yes, absolutely. And then the other news that I neglected to mention during our hot topics is also Serena Williams has been reinstated on the WTA rankings and tour.
Yep.
We don't know what because she hasn't said a lot of what that means, but she has been reinstated, which I am all for it. I'm super excited. I think that she should still chase the goal of having the most Grand Slam wins, and I'm all for it. What about you?
I think it's really exciting to see. I think on she was captured practicing with Alicia Parks on Instagram. I saw a video. So she is definitely in shape. We keep seeing all these GLP-1 ads. So we know she's lost 31, 34 pounds, whatever the total is. So she is trying to get back into fighting shape. I don't know if she's got a goal in mind to come back to the tour and compete, but we know if she does show up, she will definitely be a force to be reckoned with even at her age. So I think people are excited, but there's a reason why players might be a little apprehensive because she will be at any stage of the tournament someone who will be perceived as competition.
100%. I can't wait to see what comes next for her.
Okay. So thank you all for listening. We are excited to look at what's going on for the next bit of this season for these two major tournaments and then going straight into the clay season. We hope that you tune in next time, and thanks for joining.
Bye, guys.